Hello, guys. Welcome to our Love Gymnastics Live this week. Hope you have all had a brilliant bank holiday weekend. Remember, guys, if you want to interact with us, then you need to make sure you enable the StreamYard to be able to see so we can see them comments come through. We'd love to have your interactions. That's brilliant. It's great to be seeing a lot more clubs open up across the country as well. So hope things are all going well. See, it's all going pretty well from some of the social media and stuff you guys have been putting out. But on to today's live, on to today's topic of conversation, how to find coaches. We've had a lot in all of our various groups, a lot of conversations about this topic of coaches, coaching, how to find them. And so what we've done is we've collected everyone's ideas, and it's time for me to weigh in on what I see and what I think are some of the important parts of the coaching and how to find coaches. But it's not just about finding coaches, is it? We can find a great coach, we can find a great individual, but it's about how we then go on to retaining them. I think can sometimes be the most difficult part of the whole scenario. But there is a common theme across all sports. So all sports, not just, for example, us in gymnastics that are having issues. There are issues in rugby. There are issues in football. So we're not alone. But obviously, we can see there's slightly different, maybe tangents or maybe slightly different aspects for each area. So we're good. So I've kind of I see there being two main things which we can help: one, to find coaches, and two, to retain them, and that's partnerships and programs. So what I mean by partnerships, well, we've kind of talked already about partnerships in some of our previous lives, where we talk about the partnerships between different organizations, different clubs, different companies. And then when we're talking about programs, we're talking about a lot of people have a leadership academy, or a way that a coach can develop from being a very young coach or an inexperienced coach to being one of a mainstay within your coaching program. So these are the two areas, the partnerships and the programs are the two areas which I think are key. And that I'm going to be really kind of chiming on about today in our lives. The first one, partnerships. So as I've already said, we talked about partnerships when we talked about revenue streams, trying to give some added value to your members. However, what we also need to do is that's not the only thing. Is we need to think about schools, colleges, universities. These are all places where we can find individuals who are interested in sport. Normally they've got some sort of, all schools will have a PE department. Normally most of the colleges, they will have some sort of sports diploma, or people that are doing A levels, and universities, more often than not, they will have some sporting activities as part of that. So many of them might want to do a little bit of coaching on the side. So we really need to be linking in to these organizations, because there can be a step in to them coming in and helping out within our clubs and within our organizations. Now, how do we approach them? How do we get to speak to the right people? Now, this can be the difficult part. Now, you might be able to do it through a school sports partnership or a partnership organization. They might be able to give you the contact. If you guys can find the right contact within that organization, then you're on to a winner. And then you need to build that relationship. You need to build that rapport with that person. But a lot of the time, and that's where we've got a lot of my guys have come from, and how I've developed my guys, is through work experience. So a lot of the schools, maybe not so much obviously over coronavirus and things like that. However, most of them will have either 1 or 2 weeks where they will go out and they'll do work experience. They'll come into your workplace, and then what we try and do is we try and give them as a rounded approach as possible, to give them an idea about all the different facets and all the different parts of running a club, being involved in sports coaching. And then we can make it as enjoyable and as exciting as possible, then that then leads into our other programs that we have, and that then leads into our other parts. You got what I like to think about is how can we lead into different things? How can we think about taking the stepping stone from just being a volunteer to then maybe being a coach or a volunteer coach, or how can we get from point A to point B and make it as easy as possible? And we have part of that is our young leadership program, and I'll go on to that in a bit more. So that young leadership program, and I know other people like in a lot of schools that have academies and things like that, these programs all link in. What we do is we call it a how to coach program. So we give them, they spend time along one of our senior members of our team, and then they lead up and build into what an experience and what will be in coaching. However, we don't just let them come in and coach. We help them and guide them along. Well, these are the other options. These are the other alternatives to help them understand a wider range, because we're not just talking about maybe finding an apprentice coach. You might want an apprentice administrator, or someone to help you with that administration task, which is where you can find maybe some other parents and things like that which might be able to join in and help. And then when we think about these pathways and programs, I think it's very important, as I've already said, about how to think about succession planning. So how to be thinking, can I get from point A to point B to point C? And if we can get that, then what we do with ours is we can show them how, when you come in and volunteer for a couple of hours a week, if that's what you want to do, brilliant. Thanks very much for that. We really appreciate and really do appreciate your time and your efforts. However, this is if you want to take it a little bit further, and this is how you can get to that. Maybe it's a case of we'll put you on your first course. Maybe it's something that you volunteer for so many hours, and as a thank you gift, we'll put you on a course. However, I think another thing is that we have only just really come to, I know I certainly have in recent times, I've only just come to understand is apprenticeship programs. So an apprenticeship program, we've had 4 apprentices now at the club, and we're fortunate enough that those 4 apprentices have always gone on now to be full-time members, or they have a leaning towards full-time members of my coaching team, because we all have the same issue. We all have the same issue as the fact of that they come in for a few hours after school, and then they go off to college, and maybe they can't do that anymore, or they then go from college and they go off to university, and we lose them. So what I like to try and see is how we can help them, enable them to do things either side by side, or they can get education within the workplace, and an apprenticeship program is a great way to do that. Now, your apprenticeship program, someone might want to be an apprentice administrator, but there's no reason why they might not also want to maybe work with some preschool, or they might not want to work with some of your recreational, or maybe they can help with one of your squad groups. Just because they go into an apprenticeship in one area doesn't mean to say we can't utilize them in other areas as well. So I think that's quite important. And I think for me, that's where we need to look at that as a long-term solution to potentially where we can gain these coaches. But what we mustn't forget is that also we have our parents, and we have these people that are, while little Johnny's in doing his recreational class, there might be another class that you run alongside, a TOTS class or something like that, which they might be able to help with, and it links in very nicely because they're already at the gym, but they're not involved with their child. So that means there's no crossover there. You're not going to have any potential safeguarding issues or anything like that down the line where favoritism can come into play. So those are the things. But the other thing is, I think, to take away, and is for me, is that we have the partnerships with the schools, because that's where we're going to begin to create long-term relationships, and we have programs and exciting programs within our gym that we can then take further, and we can give them pathways of how they can turn gymnastics into a career. Many of us within the groups aren't just here as hobby coaches. There's many of us that this is our profession, this is our job. So I think if we can do that and show pathway and progression throughout the whole time, then that really will lead to us having a long-term relationship and finding those coaches. But the bottom line is, I think, guys, these coaches don't grow on trees. And I think the easiest way that in all of the communities have said, it's often easier to grow your own as such, and start off with those people that are already within your organization, within your sphere already, rather than trying to pluck something out of what is nowhere. So partnerships, pathways, and programs are the three things I think are really quite key. However, we've been working on getting some of your comments and some of your things all together, and we've got a really great article coming out within the next week or so, which we're going to be sharing with all your guys, which is giving you some of these hints and tips, but also some other things as well. We're looking at how you can maybe empower your coaches to make them last longer, or is there any other things that can make your club more appealing? And we've all got those things to help you guys, and we're bringing them out in an article later on this week, so keep your eyes peeled. But hopefully that's given you a little bit of a talking point, something to think about, go away and chat about. If you guys want more information, or you want more about what I do with my programs and how my program works in my gym, then definitely jump on the comments, and I'm sure all of us will be able to weigh in, but I can certainly give you even more of a deeper insight. This one is just the tip of the iceberg, and we could go into this in a lot more detail down the line. So most importantly, guys, I want you all to have a great day, enjoy being back open, and keep your eyes on the group for more exciting things to come. Cheers. See you later.